I guess the biggest news of the weekend, there was a lot of stuff to unpack really since our last show, which was Thursday. I think the biggest news is obviously Tyquan Thornton, right? Going down with
Right.
it seems to be a broken collarbone, it seems like from the reports. I know there was several reports out there around 8 weeks, but everybody kind of heals in different ways. And there's a bunch of different ways you can go with that, right? Like this was a big issue
Right.
with him when they drafted him. His playing weight, is he going to be able to hold up? And no one really knew when it happened. I think we were talking about it after the game, Barth. I think it was when on his second catch, when there was kind of a pile up over near the Patriots sideline, and one of the Panthers guys kind of came in late and kind of knocked the pile down. I
Right.
didn't see him after that, so it must have happened on that play, but
Well, so
all in
so he
all,
played.
tough
Yeah,
injury.
he played one more snap after that. He covered a punt. I think Michael Hurley might have nailed it down. It is the player talking about. There's a very, very brief shot of him kind of just I don't want to say grabbing at his shoulder, readjusting his shoulder pads, but that's as much as we have to go on right now. I will say though, just you talk about, well, this was the concern with him when he got drafted. Obviously, the NFL body, he's a little underweight for what you want to see for an NFL player. I, I, I just want to push back on that a little bit because and we talked about this on a past show that he's going to forever be linked, at least in the eyes of Patriots fans, to George Pickens and Sky Moore, who both went right after him there in the draft.
Yep.
People say, well, this is why you take George Pickens. Tyquan Thornton has injury issues. I would just urge anybody trying to make that argument to go look up how many games George Pickens played in college.
Yeah,
Right.
that and I guess that the other side of that argument is those big bodied receivers. Were they scared of it because of Nikhil? I know different players, right? Different programs.
Yeah.
Georgia's got a lot more pedigree at that position. But I think at the time of the pick, they knew what they wanted and they got what they wanted: speed and playmaking
Yeah,
ability.
and like, I mean, no prospect's perfect. That's the thing. Does he need to put on weight? Yes. I'd rather draft a guy who has something as fixable as that versus a guy whose flaw may be harder to fix or maybe something you
That
can't
or
fix. This is the risk you take.
teach them how to run a route, you
Right,
know?
exactly. This is the risk you take, and they've run it. Now, in terms of when he could be back, I did some research on this today. I looked at past examples. There's not a ton of great ones just because, so I looked last year, right? Quintez Cephas, wide receiver, young wide receiver, broke his collarbone. Well, he wasn't really consequential to what the Lions did. So they never brought him back from IR. I don't think that's because he never got healthy. I think it just never made sense
Sense.
for him to, come back. So I went a little further. In 2020, Leighton Vander Esch broke his collarbone, missed 4 games. I think that's probably the most optimistic thing. And for a linebacker to miss 4 games after fracturing his clavicle feels pretty incredible. Aaron Rodgers in 2017 missed 6 games after breaking his collarbone. You think for a quarterback with the shoulder, right? That's a big deal. Maybe the best comp, though, it both in terms of outcome and in terms of relatability. Will Fuller broke his collarbone in practice in early August. So, he's maybe 2 weeks ahead of where Tyquan Thornton is. He ended up missing 3 games. So he missed 9 weeks total, 3 regular season games. I think it was August 2nd. I looked this up today, 2017. So if you apply that timeline to Tyquan Thornton, you're looking at around Halloween for
Right.
him to
But
come back. And every injury is different. You don't know. But just to kind of put some context on it, that's probably about what we're looking at. I would say at some point in I think I just said August, end of August, end of October. I think you're looking at it's probably early October at the most optimistic. If he goes on IR, he has to miss at least 4 games. I think you're looking at early October to late October, maybe the first week in November for him to come back, just based on you know other players having a similar injury.
and on the flip side though, is it are they gonna be in a hurry to bring him back, right? And I don't wanna say the Foxborough flu, but right, we know that position
They're
is
never in
pretty.
a hurry with these guys. No, you're right. It's a good point.
Right. So is that a sense where, hey, we'll keep you out 8 weeks because we have 4 guys ahead of you that are veterans and we like what we see from Lil Jordan Humphrey? Are we going to rush you back? This is kind of the same thing. And I don't want to compare the player, completely different players, but last time they took N'Keal Harry, he got hurt in training camp. What was it? Ankle. Came back in week 8. I know different quarterback, different scheme, right? But it took him a while to adjust. Are we getting in a situation where it's, hey, we'll activate this guy, but he's not going to be on the field? And then, you blink and he's got 20 catches on the year and it's, he burned a year basically,
Right, and
like
then next year in camp, we're talking about, well, Tyquan Thornton had that great year last year in the summer, and then we never really saw him, right?
right.
No, look, it's a very fair question. Now, I'll say to maybe, if people freak out about that, the last year or two, they've broken trends when it comes to rookies. You look at Ramondre Stevenson last year, right? Non-first round running backs, they never, ever, ever played those guys. James White, 14 touches as a rookie.
And I think it
Ramondre
speaks
was
to the college game too, though, of how well they're developing players, especially at these Power 5 bigger programs. Like, these guys are coming out more pro ready
well,
than
so
they might have been.
so this is why, if you want to have the bigger picture conversation here of why they, changed the offense, the college game had drifted so far from what the Patriots do. It made it so tough for these
Right.
guys to, you're right. Like physically, they developed them very well, but schematically, it was such a departure. You're in this new offense now. It's going to make it easier. Maybe that does help bring him back. Like they have been breaking trends with this, but it's definitely a fair question to ask. When can we see him again? The other thing, let me actually pull up their schedule right here. They have, and they don't always do this, but in situations with rookies, sometimes they look for, call it soft landing spots, right? Are you going to bring him? What is that? Are you going to bring him back in Green Bay against the
Let's assume
Packers?
he's on IR. Let's assume they IR him to open up a spot for a guy,
Right.
that we'll talk about later, maybe a little Jordan Humphrey,
So
right? Something like that. So assume he
right. So
misses
so
the
I'll,
first 4.
right. And Packers actually week 4. Sorry, not week 5. So he can't come back against the Packers. Actually, you look at it right away. Their month of October, that might be the easiest month on their schedule. It is the easiest month on their schedule. They're home against the Lions,
Yep.
at the Browns without Watson, of course, home against the Bears, at the Jets, and then it's the bye. So those are all pretty soft landing spots. I would think, and then you have the bye, or no, sorry, then it's the Colts the first week in November, then the bye. I would think those Jets Colts games would make sense. The bye's a little late for it to be one of these things where like, oh, give them 2 weeks to ramp up.
Right.
But I would think those Jets Colts games make a ton of sense. Jets is a little bit of a short week. They play Monday night the week before, but that would be just this is no inside information. This is just me guessing based off of historical context from this and that. That's what
Right.
I'd look at.
And like you said, I think it's a wait and see with him. We have no idea, right? This could be he's out till
Right.
week 8 or he's ready for week 1, week 4. Like I guess
Right.
you just don't have context on especially these types of injuries,
Well,
right?
we'll learn a lot a week from tomorrow because if they're or around then. So he has to get on
Clear the
the initial
53.
53,
Right.
right? If you put a player on IR, and I've seen people say this, well, now he can go on IR and they keep Humphrey, they
He's
can
got to
bring him
make the
back.
53
No,
first.
right. The player has to be on the initial 53 in order to be eligible to return. If they put him on IR right now, like they did with Malcolm Butler, Juwan Williams, done
Done
for
for
the
the
year.
year. Yep.
So, like, we'll see, right? If that deadline passes, and sometimes they don't make these moves immediately. So I'm not saying 401 on Tuesday, holy crap, celebrate. But if it's Wednesday and it's Thursday and he's still not on IR, well, maybe they know something.
Yeah.
Maybe, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to return in those first 4 weeks, but he's progressed. It would mean he's progressing quickly. There's a shot at it, right? So we'll get a better idea then. I wouldn't expect that. I think he's going to go on IR, but yeah, like again, if he doesn't, like that's kind of the next clue. That's the next because that's all this is. We're playing detective, right? That's how covering the Patriots works. You're
Yeah.
you're, you're looking for clues. You're playing detective. That's kind of the next time we'll get we call it a hint on what
And
his situation is.
camp injuries happen. You just kind of have to cross your fingers that they lose Thornton Friday night and for the most part they've been relatively healthy, but
Yeah,
get in, get out, get in, get out, get your work in and
knock
let's
on
go home.
wood. Like,
Yeah,
and
right.
again, like knock on wood. I know people are really upset to lose Tyquan Thornton. He's a fun player. He's a rookie wide receiver burner. I get all that. In the grand scheme of things, though, you lose a player to position you're incredibly deep at for
And
a month and a half. If that's your biggest loss in camp, you came out okay. And again, I know it hurts to lose Thornton. Like, trust me, I was pissed when that news came out. But you look at a team like the Chargers who had like a star player tear an ACL in camp every year for like 5 straight years, right?
and the
You're
other
right.
thing
It's
too,
it's a get in, get out kind of thing.
with Thornton, it's like, and I'm not defending Nikhil by any means. I'm just saying going back to that year, like they had done a lot to that position the year before to really try and make things work, right? Like, what was it? They had Gordon in, they had Antonio Brown in, right? And then
Right.
they go out, they draft Nikhil in the first round, and he gets hurt, and people almost because he was a first round pick, right? I mean, that's the expectations you're given when you're selected that high, but everybody kind of deemed him at that time because if you remember the first 7 weeks, like their leading pass catcher was James White. Like they got nothing on offense throwing the ball other than James White and Edelman, and he
Right.
was a shell of himself. So they kind of viewed Harry as that I want to say the savior to the position, which I think
Yeah.
was unfair to everybody at the time. And obviously it didn't work out afterwards. Like things could have changed. And that's what's good. Like the good news that you have the depth, right? This position has been mightily improved and upgraded over the last 3 years where, hey, Thornton goes down, but you still have four very good, capable wide receivers that I'm sure any team in the league would take their depth. Like there's a reason teams are calling them for
Yeah.
wide receivers. 3 years ago, I think they weren't. The Patriots are doing they were calling. They need a
Right.
receiver.
It's kind of crazy. Oh, what did the Patriots wide receiver depth? What are we talking about? It happened
And
very
people will
quickly.
still
But
complain because they don't have the sexy name, but like they got enough talent to make it work.
they've
Their
got
offense
it's night and day compared to what it was 2 years ago. Night and day.
Did Demir Bird was your 2? Like, if you
And we
had
always pick on Demir Bird, who like I actually
he's
like, but you're
solid,
right, exactly.
but, like, a name like that
Demir
was, like,
Bird's
your
like the
2.
wide receiver 8 on this team.
Yeah, like, he doesn't even make the team, bro, like, you
Right.
know? And that's no disrespect, obviously, but no, like I said, I think the good thing about that whole situation, if you're trying to find a good in it, it's they get the pieces around it to soften the blow and, they get the veteran presence to get them along. The
Right.
only thing I'm
I
worried
think
about is the stunted growth, and it could have been a good
sure.
piece for them. Like, that's normal.
I think it hurts more. I don't know that it, in the very short term costs them wins. I think, like you said, you're worried about his development moving forward. Is he going to be able to hit the ground running? Are they going to have to ease him in? Blah, blah, blah. And I think it hurts because he's a rookie wide receiver. It looks like they might have finally had the guy, and now we have to wait to watch him. But they're dead. Like they're going to be able to get by. They're going to be able to run their offense without him.
Right,
And
absolutely.
you hope, right? In a perfect world, you hope that ends up being a good thing because then they don't have to rush him back. They can ease him in. They can let him get comfortable. And that should ultimately help his development.
Right. He
That's what
doesn't
you
have to
hope.
be the guy when he
Right.
comes back like everybody
We'll,
deemed Nikhil
we'll see
as,
if it
if that
turns
makes
out
sense.
that way, but that's what you hope.
We can hope all we want. But anyways,
Yeah.
Barth, that was a good show. Thought we had a lot to catch up on. We'll be
Yep.
back tomorrow all week, kind of breaking down joint practices. Like I said, obviously we're not there. I couldn't use a week in Vegas right now. Um,
Who
but
could?
I definitely wish I was there.
Oh, yeah.
But someone Barth would probably show up late. He might be at the casino, but I'm kidding. To
Me,
practice. But
I'm the
no,
one who
I'm
shows
kidding.
up first to practice every
You
day.
are. You are always first. I used to be, but it's tougher for me to get there.